Welcome back to an all-new, amazing episode of Two Fans, One Pod. I am your host, and as always, I have with me Brandon. Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Really good. I'm
You
excited to
excited for
get into
today's
this with
episode?
you. Yes, I am. This is all I've been thinking about ever since we started the pod, Just definitely wanted to get down to ranking everybody and getting to this point.
Yeah, I think what we've been noticing, Brandon and I, is, all these different outlets that we get our information from. We follow Josh Pate, Joel Klatt, ESPN. We follow a lot of the big names, a lot of the big sources, the obvious ones to get our college football information. And we noticed that a lot of them are doing their, now that the spring portal is closed and the spring games have kind of also come to an end, we can take a step back, reevaluate these teams with their new roster additions and how they played into their schemes for the teams that actually decided to go through with their spring games and where we put them on our own personal top 25 lists. Now, me and Brandon considered the idea of sharing a top 25 list, but we got in too many arguments trying to dispel these teams and plan out exactly how we want them to lay out in our top 25. So we're going to kind of go through in segments and compare our two lists against each other while we share it with you guys. So starting right off the bat, Brandon, hit me with your 25. Who were the first teams that made it into your top 25?
So Oklahoma, I feel like, is always going to be guaranteed a spot in that top 25 ranking. Last year wasn't the best year for them. It was their first year in the SEC. They went 6-7, I believe. But they did make some noise in the transfer portal. They were able to get John Mateer and Jay Denot. Both of those guys are capable. They've excelled in their previous programs. So that should, be enough to at least get them in the ranking. Oklahoma always does have some talent on their roster, too. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So that 25th spot is where I had them. Iowa. This is a team that I feel like the addition of Mark Gronowski, the FCS legend, is huge for them. He's a two-time Natty Ship winner, won the MVP both times in those games, back-to-back. He has loads of experience, and it's a new landscape of college football where that ultimately is the thing that I think most teams are after, especially that QB spot. And because the portal is so accessible now, you don't have to sit out a year anymore. So if you're able to get a guy like him that has all this experience and bring him into your system, and he's a proven winner, 49-6 as a starter. That's huge. And experience wins, especially at a position like quarterback, where I feel like 70% of it is like a mental game. Making the right reads, knowing how to break down a defense, knowing how to read coverages. So I think the only difference for him will be that things are faster for him. But I'm sure, because of the kind of player that he is and the kind of experience he has, that adjustment will be easier for him than it would be for maybe a lot of other transfers or incoming freshmen. And then, they're one of those teams that always have a stout defense, one that could at least maintain throughout the whole game, and they still have their strong pass rush. So I do think that they could end up in that spot over there at 24. 23rd, BYU. Rice is back. I think I'm saying his name correctly. I always mess it up. They did lose a bit, but that team went 11-2 last year. They still have their starting quarterback coming back. You'll see that I do have a bunch of Big 12 teams earlier on in the rankings. That conference as a whole just has kind of a lot of really good teams. They don't have anybody that's necessarily elite, quote unquote, but I think that's what makes the conference so fun too, is that it's a really level playing field. Anybody can win any game. And if you look at the first half of their schedule, Portland State, Stanford, ECU, Colorado, WVU, and Arizona, all those teams have plenty of big question marks or are kind of in that rebuild phase. The second half of the season looks more like a toss-up for them. They have the rivalry with Utah, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and TCU. And all those games look winnable. Cincy as well, UCF as well. So I think they'll have another strong year. And then Texas Tech. Texas Tech, when I was doing research on them, I was very pleasantly surprised. The defensive side of the ball, they have their linebacker room and their secondary coming back. I'm a big fan of Jacob Rodriguez, the speedster off-ball linebacker. I think he's going to be big for them. I believe he was injured, not last year, but the year before. So he was able to get another year of eligibility, and he's able to play this coming year. And then they also added two stud defensive ends, Romello Height from Georgia Tech and Lee Hunter out of UCF. They have a brand new defensive coordinator, Sheil Wood. This guy, Alex, I was looking into him, and he has a reputation of basically wherever he goes, he immediately improves the defense. Last year, he was at Houston, and he improved the defense that ranked 105 nationally for scoring. They let up 31.5 points a game, and 112th for total defense, allowing 423 yards. This was prior to his arrival. And when he arrived, he cut those totals down to 22.9 points a game and 324 yards per game. He's done a damn good job. I believe he did the same thing at Tulane, at Troy as well, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be a huge addition for them. You know, if they're able to get that defensive side of the ball, like, you know, solidified, which it seems like they had. It seems like maybe he was the missing piece, that defensive coordinator. He's going to bring it all together and make them, you know, a really strong team defensively. And then they vamped up the O-line as well. They added a capable slot receiver to a room that already has two guys returning as well, and Coy Eakin and Caleb Douglas. And they started off the season last year with a loss to Wazoo, but they did end up beating the likes of Arizona State, who made a lot of noise, Cincy and Arizona, before some more tough losses to Baylor, TCU, and Colorado. But they're definitely a team that I think can, you know, they can definitely make some noise. They only added key players on both sides of the ball. They've only gotten better. The biggest loss is probably Taj Brooks, but they do have Quentin Joyner from USC. Yeah, USC coming in to replace him. So that'll be big. And then that 21st spot, SMU. I know that this program lost a lot, but Kevin Jennings is Kevin Jennings at the end of the day. I know he kind of fell apart in the playoffs a bit too. But I think that this program, you know, it's definitely worthy of that 21st spot. I'm looking forward to see how Kevin Jennings does in his second year. You know, a lot of talks about him being a Heisman finalist, or a Heisman candidate, excuse me. But yeah, that's kind of what I had for that 25 to 21 spot. Tell me what you think, or what you have on your end.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a great segue. Your 21 feeds right into my 25, actually. I got SMU at 25. Rhett Lashley, this is his second season in the ACC. His first season was actually pretty good, considering they went to the ACC championship. Kevin Jennings is coming back, had over 3,000 passing yards, and surprising amount of rushing yards, too. They replaced Rashard Smith with UCLA's TJ Harden. Honestly, they look good with the exception of their wide receiver room. I think they just need a little bit of help, and if they can do that, SMU will be able to, recreate the record that they had last year. At 24, I got Indiana, and I kind of went low in Indiana because I have to be realistic. Last season, it's just not going to be recreated. I don't have faith that that team will be able to recreate that Cinderella story they had last season. They picked up that experienced QB from Cal, Mendoza. Mikhail Kamara, returning on defense, had 19 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, so huge name on defense. They did lose a lot in that front seven, and they will need to play consistently to maintain that elite level, to maintain that elite record. So, Kurt Cignetti, wish you the best. Good luck. 23, I have K-State. Avery Johnson really was poised for success in 2024, and the articles I'm reading is he's poised for success in 25. What does that mean? Actually, statistically, look at his season last year. Pretty good. 2,700 passing, 600 rushing, and a whole bunch of touchdowns. Over 30 total touchdowns on offense. That's crazy. So he is poised for success again. This team needs to replace that offensive line, and if they can, maybe Avery Johnson's experience will help him push Kansas State to where they should have been, where they were not too long ago, just a few years ago. At 22, I have Miami. Mario Cristobal's team, I think last year was really the Cam Ward show. So let's take a step back. Cam Ward is gone. Okay, so I'm viewing this entirely with a brand new team. Carson Beck at the helm. What did he do last year at Georgia? I couldn't even tell you. What's awesome is they have both of their running backs returning. They accounted for a little over 1,000 total yards, 13 touchdowns. They have some talent coming back for sure. They also replaced that super deep wide receiver room. I personally don't understand Xavier Restrepo not getting drafted. I understand the 4.83 40 was not great as a wide receiver, not phenomenal. But love that kid. Has a ton of records in Miami, but they have to replace that. So they picked up this guy, Keelan Marion from BYU. I think he played more of a halfback role because he had like almost 100 rushing. And then at 21, I've got Nebraska. Now, Matt Rule is entering his third year. I have a lot of respect. I've gained a little bit more respect hearing him talk in interviews. Dylan Raiola, freshman's phenom, sensation, whatever you want to call it. Use all the buzzwords you want. But at the end of the day, 13 total touchdowns, 11 total interceptions, couple of fumbles too. The kid was a freshman who played like a freshman with talent in college football. Let's acknowledge that. Great. Let's build from that. What are you going to do with it now? First time bowl eligible in 8 years. That's pretty impressive. They need to be consistent. How are you going to get there? I don't know. Can they be consistent? Matt Rule, show me. Hit me with your top 20, Brennan.
Top 20. So at that 20th spot, I had Iowa State coming in there. They had a big year last year. They went 11-3 overall and 7-2 within the conference Big 12. Like I said earlier, Big 12 is just one of those conferences with a lot of teams that are good. It's a very competitive playing field. They have their quarterback coming in for the third year now, I believe, Rocco Becht. I feel like it's one of those teams that they didn't lose a whole lot, it seemed like. They did retain a decent amount. They added a lot of depth to the defensive line. They did lose some offensive line personnel. So they're going to have to hope that, the guys that are going to step up are going to be able to come together really, really quickly early on in the season. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. Texas A&M. This is a squad that I think did a great job in the portal. Marcel Reed was a guy that showed a lot of promise when he did come in, started playing for them later on in the season. And he won the starting job over. He's a mobile QB. He's a lot of fun to watch. I believe he's going into his junior season, if I'm not mistaken, sophomore or junior season. They have Le'Veon Moss coming back, the running back. So that'll be huge for him. And then not only that, but they upgraded the receiver room. Some people are saying that they had the best receiver. They got the best receivers in the transfer portal overall, and Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, excuse me. So that'll be huge for him. And they also have Theo coming back, the vertical threat tight end from Sweden. And they paired him with another addition from the portal, Amari Nablack. They have a lot of guys on that offense, have plenty of weapons for him to use. They should, they should come in ranked for sure. How they'll do in the season, we'll have to wait and see. But I think the offense is great. They have everything that they need damn near. They did lose some guys on the defensive line, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, but they did replace them in the portal. They also still have Willie III, their standout corner, which is going to be big for their secondary. Definitely going to need someone to lead them. But yeah, this is a team that kind of found their quarterback. They vamped up all the weapons around him. We'll see how that goes. Indiana, I had them at the 18th spot, more ahead than you did. Kurt Signetti, he did bring a lot of guys back. They did retain a lot of people, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and D'Angelo Pons and Amari Farrell. They round up the secondary while the front seven has been upgraded. The offensive side of the ball, both receivers are back, and they brought in Mendoza to fill that QB spot. Curtis Rourke was really good, but I do feel like Mendoza's better. The O-line also got a lot of new additions too.
Pause.
Yeah.
You're saying Mendoza is better than... Curtis Rourke was like a Heisman candidate last year.
Yeah, I think that had to do a little bit with the noise that Indiana kind of had too, But I think Mendoza will be better for them, personally.
You're saying he'll fit Indiana's scheme better than Curtis Rourke, Heisman candidate? Okay.
I think so.
Understood.
Yes.
Understood. Everyone write that down. Go ahead, continue.
We'll revisit this. But yeah, their schedule is not too difficult, in my opinion. Their non-conference opponents are ODU, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, and then their tougher games are Iowa on the road, Oregon on the road, and Penn State on the road. Those are their main three tough games. So yeah, do that, what you will. And then Arizona State, I had them at my 17th spot. I feel like a lot of people had them ranked higher, which I understand, but I do think Scadaboo is just such a big part of that offense, man. Like, we saw him do everything. You know what I mean? Not saying that they don't have anybody else. Jordan Tyson's a guy, and then Sam Levitt, he's so fun to watch. He could be one of the best quarterbacks this year. That's the hype, at least. And they also did bring in a new running back from Army who just had a 1,000-yard season. I'm blanking out on his name. That's who the replacement for Scadaboo is going to be. Kenny Dillingham has just done an amazing job with this program. It can't be overlooked. I think a lot of people have them higher in the rankings because of him, not just because of the personnel that they have. So yeah, it'll be fun to watch them for sure. And then Ole Miss at that 16th spot. This one I saw a lot of people have kind of later or earlier in the rankings, in the 20s sort of thing. I think Austin Simmons is going to be a killer. We talked about this in our SEC episode. They had to add a lot in the portal because they did lose a lot. But a program like that's always going to get quality. And not only did they get quality, but they also got quantity. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. They added a lot of guys to the receiver room. They upgraded the defensive line in the secondary. And Lane Kiffin's just one of those guys who I think doesn't need a whole lot to make his offense click. Not saying that this offense is lacking this coming year, but it may be lacking in terms of comparison to the last year's. But in the SEC, I feel like it's, at least for a guy like Lane Kiffin, he's going to be able to get that offense going, and they just need to rely that their defense is going to step up.
I'm going to start my top 20 with a team that you did not even include in your top 25. And that is the Missouri Tigers. Eli Drinkwitz was able to snag Bo Perbula in the portal, and I say snag because I have no idea what other teams were going after him, but with his talent, I know they were. They also picked up low-key the number one edge in the portal. I had no idea, Damon Wilson. They had actually a pretty elite defense. Last year, they were 17th overall in defense on total D, and also they were, I believe, top 18 in both rushing defense and points defense. So I think they definitely need to maintain that elite level. Obviously, being in the SEC, you just have to. But Bo Prabula will round out this offense really well. I think that's one thing. Brady Cook didn't have legs like Bo does. So we'll see how this plays out. Kirk Ferentz. God, how long has he been at Iowa? I mean, maybe longer than we've been born. That's probably an exaggeration. So they picked up this SD State guy, Mark Gronowski.
Yes.
You talked about him already. I think I have more faith in the defense than I think you do. Just even looking at the teams that you have ranked above Iowa, Iowa's beating Texas Tech. I hate to break it to you. They're going to beat SMU. They'll beat Indiana. Iowa's defense has never been an issue. It's just what it is. But Iowa needs to win again. They have to have consistent wins. So they have to win they have to win against the big guys. Penn State, Iowa State, they have like some pretty intense games. They're at home though. Can you beat Penn State at home? I've seen it. I've watched it. I've cried to it. I've also seen Iowa lose to Iowa State a lot recently. That needs to change. Next, I got BYU, which obviously I have about 5 points higher than you do. Jake Retzloff, love the guy. Very elite offense, very elite defense. At one point, weren't they 10-0, 11-0? Until they had a late loss. I mean, there was a point where they were like, yeah, these guys are riding a one-way ticket to the college football playoffs. And unfortunately, because of how weak the Big 12 is, anyway, yada, yada. Fast forward to 2025. They have a bunch of returning starters on offense. Their running back, their wide receiver. Obviously, they lose Keelan Marion. But they also need to figure out their D-line. They had a really good rush defense, 33rd ranked, and also the 18th ranked points defense, and they lost a lot of their D-line. They need to figure that out. Auburn at 17. Jackson Arnold, do we need to talk about him? You add a dynamic play to the quarterback position. Obviously, you'll be able to provide more offense to your team. They also just so happen to pick up the best wide receiver in the portal, Eric Singleton. I'm not actually, I love Hugh Freeze. I love Auburn. I love the program. I saw what I saw last year was too many turnovers, especially in the fourth quarter, early in the season. And once you have a bad record going into half point of the season, you're basically over. If it's the SEC, you're done. SEC or Big Ten, you're down. So they need to not do that. They need to not turn over. They need to close out games. If they do that, better record, more wins, playoffs. Texas A&M at 16. I really like Marcel Reed. As a runner, it's going to be a run-first offense. A lot of read options, RPOs, whatever you want to call them. Mike Elko snagged, this is so random, Colin Klein was, I think he came second or third in Heisman voting, and he got picked up by Mike Elko as offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. He's low-key, I mean, you can quote me now, whatever, the 8th of May. He's low-key like a wizard. He knows what he's doing. Like, he can produce offense. The guy knows how to produce
let's
offense.
go. I did not know this. Now I'm really excited to watch
So
them.
random. Look it up. Colin Klein. Like the guy. He's young. You'll see him on the sidelines. He looks like a freaking teenager on the sideline. But yeah, huge fan of him. And I really like the direction Texas A&M. As Joel Klatt loves to say, upward trajectory. That's what they're on. I really, really like the team. They went really ham in the portal for their D-line because they lost those 3 guys, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, and Nick Scarreton. But, I don't know. How are they going to play? They're fighting for starting positions, and then also how are they going to mesh together? It's a brand new line, so brand new pieces, and it's 3 elite linemen they lost. So, big question marks. Hit me with your top 15, Brandon.
Top 15, South Carolina. I feel like this team is kind of turned into a media darling a bit. Understandably so. I mean, you got Shane Beamer, who's a charismatic, personable guy. A lot of passion on the sideline. The media loves that, always panning the camera to him. And they went on a 6-game winning streak last season to end the year before ultimately losing to Illinois, which was big. And then, of course, you can't forget about Lenore Sellers, which is probably the main reason, a lot of people are putting them in their top 15, I feel like, because I've noticed that they're definitely sneaking in past that 20th range and below that 10th range. So I feel like South Carolina can definitely make some noise this year. Lenore Sellers being the main reason why. I mean, the guy's electric. As a true freshman, he was killing it. Apparently, they had to, give him a bag just to make sure he would stay. So there were definitely other teams calling for his talents. We'll see what they're able to do this year. They do have a decent amount coming back. I know they lost some guys on defense, but the offense, for the most part, it should be around the same. So that'll be a good team to watch. And then Auburn, as you were mentioning, Jackson Arnold was a guy who also had a lot of turnover issues. And he's going to an offense that had turnover issues. Now, what's different with Auburn than, what he had at Oklahoma was that the O-line is better and the receiving room is insane. They have one of the best receiver rooms in the country. Like you were saying, they got Eric Singleton. That was like the biggest transfer portal receiver, I'm pretty sure. That team should, do something this year. I believe this will be Hugh Freeze's third year coaching them, and this should be the best team he had. Yeah, he needs to, we need to see some results at this point. So that should be, I feel like that 14th spot is where a lot of people are hoping that they'll perform at, caliber wise. So we'll have to, see if they're able to live up to it. And then Illinois. I know you love this program. You love this program so much.
You do too.
They're
for
kind
the
of
record. You have
I
them
do.
at 13. So
I do. Because it's one of those things where it's almost undeniable at this point, right? College football. The essence of being successful in college football is, of course, you need a good coach, which they do have. You also need continuity and you need experience. They have that as well. They have Luke Altmaier coming back. They have all their offensive linemen coming back, the entire secondary and their standout linebacker. I mean, they earned this spot at 13th. They closed the season out so strong last year. Yeah, they got the quality at every position damn near. I think, they're gonna have a year. I do think that they have all the weapons and the pieces in place that excel. That 12th spot, I tried not to put them too high, but go blue, baby. Michigan at number 12. They did lose, some impact players on defense, but they still do have a lot. Rayshawn Benny, Jayshon Barham, Rod Moore, just to name a few. Bryce Underwood and Mikey Keene were supposed to be battling for that QB spot, but it does look like due to Keene's shoulder injury, I think Bryce Underwood is going to probably start the year off as the starter just because Mikey Keene really hasn't had a lot of, I don't think he's had any reps so far in the preseason, at least practice reps. So they're probably going to go with Bryce Underwood. Justice Haynes, one of the best running backs in the portal out of Alabama. He'll be leading the backfield. Michigan loves the, ground and pound kind of offense. And yeah, I think the three major tests this year on their schedule is Oklahoma on the road, Nebraska on the road, and Ohio State at home. I would say USC, but I feel like that program kind of has a lot of question marks as well right now. Last year it was a bigger test for them, but yeah, we saw them last year. They were able to still win some games without having any offense at all. They still have a quality defense, and they improved the offense. They got a new OC. I think that they're due for a good year. Florida, DJ Lagway. That's it. No, I'm just kidding. DJ Lagway is a guy who doesn't love watching him. He won the spot last year. We were talking about it yesterday. He was 6-1 as a starter. Is that correct? So they have a lot of guys returning on both sides of the ball. Jordan Castell, the standout safety, is coming back on defense, which is huge. They still have both of their running backs, Jaden Baugh and Jacob Jackson. Starting center and left tackle are coming back. Huge impact players for them. So they did retain a lot. Seemingly, like it looked like one impact player at each position. So there are a lot of high hopes for Florida, DJ Lagway and Billy Napier. Now, can they live up to it? We'll have to wait and see. We did go over their tough schedule in the SEC preview episode. I took the under, you took the over, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how they perform.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice that once we get into the 15 to 10 range, a lot of these schools are really interchangeable. Like, no joke, anywhere between 10 and 25, I would even say. A lot of these teams have the capacity to beat these teams, just looking at them objectively. Yeah. At 15, I have Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, not necessarily a huge fan of. I don't like his decision-making all the time, especially when it comes to fourth downs in pivotal games, even when you have star talent. I would say that Austin Simmons looked really good against Georgia. We've already talked about him before and how much we like him. And they're going to stay talented. It's one of those teams that will always, because there's just too much money flowing through there, the portal will be always in their favor. So the question becomes, Ole Miss, year after year, a lot of schools are in the same position. You can hit the 10 wins. There's no question about that. Can you make the SEC championship? Can you make it to the playoffs? Can you put yourself in a position to win? We'll see. Lane Kiffin, Michigan. I think we both have very similar positions because we both have the same exact thoughts. They need to figure out their quarterback room it's already starting to look like 2024 again, because you got Alex Orji, who's a runner, and he's showing, he has some, snaps under center. They need to figure out that QB room quick. They have so much talent on that roster. Obviously, Bryce Underwood, we don't even need to talk about him. I understand that he's still apparently in a QB battle. His spring game was not necessarily the best showing in the whole world. Granted, you're probably not going to want to show too much. That guy, Wink Martindale, he's good.
He's a beast.
I mean, he's just so
he's
good.
He's a beast.
You know, Michigan has won off of their defense too much. So they lost Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. That's obvious heavy hitters on your line, but that defense is still great, and the coordinator is phenomenal. So no worries about Michigan on defense here. At 13, I have Oklahoma. John Mateer, Jaden Ott. Those are the two big names I have coming in. John Mateer, obviously being a Washington State quarterback with a lot of talent, similar to Cam Ward transfer, which is what the comparison everyone wants to make, especially since John Mateer is a great runner. He's very dynamic with the football. Curious to see how it plays out. Jackson Arnold was also very talented. It didn't really work out. So the 6-7 record that you mentioned, they were able to get to a bowl game. That's awesome. But they need to get a better record so they can retain more talent. You know, they had so many transfers, and it's because of that record. In the SEC, a 6-6 record coming out of the regular season is not going to turn any heads. At 12, I have South Carolina. Shane Beamer did not finish the season well. I'm going to preface by saying that obviously he had a 4, 5, 6 game win streak in the regular season, but finishing in that bowl game the way he did against Illinois was pretty cringe, honestly. Not a huge fan of Shane Beamer. I'm on record saying that before. Huge fan of Lenore Sellers. That guy's a beast. True freshman. He's throwing for 2,500 yards, and he's got 25 total touchdowns. Super shifty. Love that guy. Can't wait to watch him play. He's one of those few quarterbacks that you're like, I can't wait to watch South Carolina play because of Lenore Sellers. So really excited for the season to start just to watch him play. Didn't know about what's going on with Rasul Faison. Apparently, potentially might not be eligible this year. So curious to see how that plays out. They also have a crazy schedule. South Carolina's schedule is one of the toughest in the SEC. They have a ton of road games in conference, which is just rough. And they still have to host Oklahoma and Alabama at home. So rough schedule. Can they get to 9-3 again? I would love to see that. If they do, it's going to be because of Lenore Sellers. Finally, I have LSU at 11. Which I think is very fair, considering Garrett Nussmeier and how good of a quarterback he is. 4,000 plus passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, excellent QBR. But what is he lacking? It's the same pro that LSU has right now is the same con that they have, and that is also Garrett Nussmeier. I'm also on record saying that Nussmeier has pretty poor decision-making under pressure. I did see a fourth quarter comeback at least once last season by him, but I also saw some pretty blatant and obvious misthrows. So want to see consistency out of him. If you get consistency, you get a better record. It is what it is. No one's going to look back at LSU 2024 and talk about how elite Nussmeier was because it was a 7-5 record. All right, hit me with your top 10, Brandon.
Number 10, University of Miami. I feel like, I understand what you were saying earlier, that it was the Cam Ward show last year. Cam Ward's gone. They did lose Isaiah Horton, but they still have a lot in their receiver room. They kept Trader. They got Joseph still, and they also gained CJ Daniels. On the defensive side of the ball, they still have the talent. Now, I know that their defense didn't look, like a talented defense, and I think that's going to change this upcoming year because it has to change. You know what I mean? They put up a lot of points, but the things that, was making them lose games or games being closer than they should be was their defense and how undisciplined it was, because they do have the talent. They got Ruben Bain coming back, Wesley Bisant, OJ Frederick. So all those guys are talented players. It's just one of those things where I feel like they need to understand that just because the offense is putting up points doesn't mean that you can take your foot off the gas. Maybe that changes this year. Another big question mark with them, though, is that Carson Beck had surgery on his elbow. I believe his UCL has kept him out of any practice so far. So that's going to be interesting to, watch. They do have Fletcher coming back in the backfield, which is big. He was backing up Martinez last year, and he's good. He's very talented. The program's huge. They apparently have a $40 million roster, according to Kurt Signetti. So I could easily see them being ranked within that top 10. They almost made the playoffs last year. I do understand they lost Cam Ward, who was a Heisman candidate at the end of the year, but Carson Beck, I know he made a lot of mistakes, but he's still a very able quarterback. He's not bad. He's talented for sure. He can make the tough throws. It's just, like you were saying, the decision-making can be a bit iffy, but they still do have Cristobal in his corner, and that's going to make some changes.
Now, they also did hire Minnesota defensive coordinator Corey Heatherman, and he was very low-key a beast. 9th in points allowed, 5th in total defense. Pretty crazy. So I expect a turnaround on the defense, but as bad as it was, a huge turnaround still might not be enough.
I appreciate you just shitting on my take, but no, it's fine. No. No, but I totally understand what you're saying, for sure. I mean, Miami's always been one of those teams that the defense has always been a question mark, so hopefully that hire ties it all together. Alabama at 9. I think Alabama is going to be kind of riding the pixie dust of what was Alabama for the next couple of years, and that's no knock on them. They're still a great program, 100%. I don't know if they improve from last year or still kind of stay in that same ballpark of 9-3. Like, I'm over here talking about them like they're bad. They're still one of the best programs in the country. Bama's still Bama. They're still going to get some of the best recruiting classes, especially when it comes to the trenches. They always have talent in the trenches. And this roster isn't bad, not whatsoever. It's kind of interesting to see the QB situation play out. I know that they're saying Ty Simpson will start, but who knows? Maybe later on in the season they do switch course. I know that they have that 5-star quarterback, Keelan Russell. I know he's a stud too. And then they added Isaiah Horton to the receiver room to pair with Ryan Williams. And we all saw what Ryan Williams was able to do last year. I do think he takes another leap this year. Jalen Milroe was more of a quarterback that you kind of had to design plays that were more friendly for him. Hopefully this year we can see kind of them air it out a bit more and put their receivers in positions to make plays because they have a really talented receiver room. They still do have Jam Miller coming back in the backfield too, which is huge. Alabama at that 9 spot. That's where I got them at. Notre Dame. I got them at number 8. You know, Marcus Freeman has just done such a good job coaching this program since he arrived. He definitely solidified them as a top 10 team like every single year, it seems like. You know, the talent that they're able to get, the attention that they're able to get, the results that they're able to produce. I mean, there's a reason why we talk about them every single year. Jeremiah Love is coming back in the backfield, which is huge. They still have Jadarian Price as well, which is, that backfield's going to be a problem. I know that they were hoping that the backup for Riley Leonard was going to stay. I'm blanking out on his name, but it looks like there's going to be a redshirt freshman who starts for them. So that's probably going to be like a big question mark for their offense. Might be some growing pains in the beginning, but I still think that they should be able to get the job done. The receiver room is nuts. They got Malachi Fields from Virginia, who is a standout over there. He's a stud, big guy. And then Jordan Faison and Jaden Grayhouse are coming back. So that's huge. They did lose some O-linemen in the portal. So that's also another reason, might be a little scary for that redshirt freshman QE. Once that group does come together and get some chemistry established after, right before the season starts, maybe it's through practice, maybe it's through the first couple games. I think that this program is going to be fine. They're always going to produce and they're always going to have some quality. And then at that 7th spot, I got LSU. The defense is insane. That front 7 is absurd. I think they might have the best front 7 in the country. Patrick Payton from FSU. Harold Perkins is coming back. Whit Weeks is coming back. They got Jack Pyburn transferred in. Their secondary, they got Ashton Stamps, Mansour Delane, the transfer from Tech on the other side. I mean, like I was saying earlier, defense is just so important, especially in the trenches when it comes to college football. And in a conference like the SEC, it's a must to have an elite defense if you want to win games, if you even want to compete. And I think the LSU, like I said, has the best front 7 in this conference, along with an experienced QB who I know his decision-making has been iffy sometimes, but hopefully with more experience, he's able to come into his own a bit and produce some better results. I think this program should take that necessary step forward. They should be able to. They have all the talent on the team. And if not, who knows? Maybe it is time for Brian Kelly to hang it up because the personnel is there. And then at that number 6 spot, I got Georgia. It feels weird putting them outside of the top 5 or top 3 just because Georgia's Georgia. But yeah, like I was saying earlier for Bama, I mean, a 6th ranked team. They're still a hell of a program. Their receiver room is stronger than it was last year with Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas. Oscar Delp is also returning, which is huge. So Gunnar Stockton's got some weapons. And then they got Josh McCray from Illinois to fill in for the loss of Etienne. So that's going to be big. And yeah, Georgia's like another team that's always going to be tough in the trenches. I mean, we always see their linemen on both sides of the ball getting drafted in the first round. Kirby Smart's Kirby Smart. I mean, he established that program as a blue blood, top 10 guaranteed, top 5 should be every single year. Now I'm excited to hear yours. We're close, baby. We're close.
I know. So you did mention I was a little higher on Illinois than you are. I mean, you still have Illinois at 13. I got them at 10. Not too much more to add. I'd really like Luke Altmaier. And that game last year between Penn State and Illinois was a lot closer than the scoreline. I think the final scoreline was like 21-7. But that game was a one-possession game until pretty much the final minutes. Luke Altmaier, 2,700 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Good decision maker, good with his feet. I don't know. I mean, they lost Josh McCray to Georgia. You mentioned that. I'm wondering, I know that they probably have a couple of backs fighting, but it's a power blocking team. Is it really a loss when you lose a running back? And at Illinois, they've had talent. Illinois has had crazy running backs over the past few years, obviously. But I'm curious to see how this plays out. If Illinois still retains all of their offensive line with all that experience, they might end up going to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer, second year at Alabama. You did mention Jam Miller and Ryan Williams returning. By the way, so funny. All of the lists we looked at, including yours and mine, both have Alabama at 9. I'm going to look into that. Now, the biggest piece that I also saw was they picked up Isaiah Horton. And it looks like Bama is really trying to find that wide receiver one that they usually have had for so long. Some talent on the outside that can kind of carry games. Close out games. Last year was supposed to be Jalen Milroe, and he wasn't able to perform under pressure, and that's okay. Jam Miller, great running back. They lost Justice Haynes, but still Jam Miller, love the guy. Ryan Williams, electric guy. There's so many highlights on YouTube of him. Surprised he didn't have a 1,000-yard season, by the way. Probably more has to do with Jalen Milroe than anything else. They need to perform. They need to finish games. Who knows? Was it a Kalen DeBoer and Jalen Milroe incompatibility? I don't know. Curious to see how year 2 plays out. A lot of question marks on Bama. Like you said, they're just getting the 9th spot because of that notoriety. I have Florida at 8. Now, I have openly been critical of Billy Napier, but Joel Klatt is right. He did manage to do something, which was shut up all the haters and focus on the season. Interpret that how you will. But that man essentially decided to take all that noise, sit Graham Mertz, and start his true freshman, DJ Lagway, get him injured, by the way, lest we forget. And now we have question marks on him. Is he going to be okay through the injury on the offseason? He's still going to be the starter. I want to say Billy Napier's in the hot seat, but really Florida's in the hot seat here. Their expectations in SEC play every year always ends up being overrated. I have them at 8. Let's see how they play out by the end of the season. This is his year. This is Billy Napier's last year. Let's see what happens.
Is this the last year? It's do or die?
Of course. Their line is 6.5.
This is what, his 3rd year there? 4th?
Vegas does not have any faith in Billy Napier. I believe it's his 4th year. But they have no faith in him. 6.5 wins.
Vegas always knows something, baby.
If they finish 6-6, he's out. Georgia at 7. Again, one of those teams, too much notoriety. I understand that Gunnar Stockton might not be the best option. They have always had elite defense. They just added a bunch of transfer portal additions to that defense. They always have that positive mental. Kirby Smart is so good. Even when they're 2 touchdown favorites, he's so good at making them out to be the victims. And the world's against us. And he's so good at that. Jim Harbaugh was so good at that on his championship year. And you can't find that out of coaches. Kirby Smart, arguably the best coach in college football right now. We can talk about that later. They added Zachariah Branch. They added Noah Thomas from A&M. So obviously you have more talent. Zachariah Branch hoping to be that reliable option they have on the outside or slot, however they decide to play him. But again, it's that mental. They keep that elite defense. Doesn't matter who's at the quarterback. Remember when Stetson Bennett, everyone had question marks about him and he won national championships? 6, I got Oregon. A lot of question marks on this team, actually. There is a ton of question marks. They picked up Mekhi Hughes. They also have this phenom, Dante Moore, who's apparently sat behind Dylan Gabriel transferring out of UCLA a couple years back, but he's supposed to be this crazy kid who's got tons of talent, can carry these games. But I don't know. Now I'm reading that he might even be in a quarterback battle. So we'll see how that goes. What I do like about Oregon is that Dan Lanning mentality. You'll start noticing once we get into the top 10, all of a sudden it's about the coaches. Dan Lanning's going to win a national championship. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Don't know if it's going to be this year. Might not be, but let's see how Dante Moore plays out. What happened in the playoff to Oregon? What happened?
Yeah.
I think it was 2 things. Number 1, Ohio State was riding that momentum off the end of the season, all that hate, and they wanted to shove it back in our faces. And on top of that, Oregon had the bye week. We forget about this. They had a bye week where they had multiple weeks where we're not hitting each other. You don't get used to the hits again. You don't get used to the speed on enemy teams. You keep practicing with the same people. You get comfortable. So we can't forget that. they need to address the bye week, by the way. Hit me with your top 5.
Top 5. So at that 5th spot, I got Clemson. I think Dabo Swinney, I love what he's done because he really didn't. You know how many transfers they have coming in?
Hit me with it.
3. 3 transfers.
I mean, but that's part of his mentality. That's part of his
That's
mentality.
what I'm saying. And remember, everybody was telling him, you got to switch it up. You got to adjust to the new landscape. He said, fuck all y'all. I'm going to go ahead and ride with my guns.
He still brought in, I mean, this was a man who staunchly sat on the table that said, I will not participate in this. And now he's bringing them in. So he's open to the idea. If it's someone elite, that's probably who he's looking at. Tell us about him.
No, it's one of those things like, they only brought in 3 guys. They only lost 8 people. And I think he's using it more as a means of retainment, not necessarily bringing guys in. Because if you look at the roster, I mean, they have a lot of people coming back. On the defensive side of the ball, their impact players are TJ Parker on the edge and Khalil Barnes as the free safety. And then they got Gideon Davidson, the true freshman running back. He should be starting for them, which is a big deal. He looks like he's very talented. And Cade Klubnik, of course. I mean, it's his 3rd year leading this team. His receiver room is insane. Antonio Williams is a top 10 receiver. TJ Moore is back as well. He was a true freshman who really contributed to this team in a big way. TJ Moore, he's a great route runner. And then you got Bryant Wesco. He's kind of like their speedy vertical guy. He plays in the slot. He's a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, I think it might be the best receiver room in the country in terms of talent, continuity, and chemistry. You know, a lot of other teams, they made moves in the portal and they bring in guys in for the first year. But all 3 of these guys were on the team last year and they all had success. And now they're going into another year with a quarterback who's supposed to be like the best quarterback in college football. I think so, at least. I think Cade Klubnik is the best quarterback in college football. I think Clemson's back. I think Dabo did a damn good job bringing this team back. And he did it his way. He really did. I think they make the playoffs. I hope they make it far. I really do. I think it'd be a really fun story to watch. But that's where I got them at. And then Oregon, like you were mentioning earlier, Dante Moore. He's a guy that has a lot of expectations for him. But when the spring practice, opened up, Austin Novosad, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. He's a guy that also, turned a lot of heads, it seemed like. He sat behind Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel, so he picked up a lot from both of those guys. Dan Lanning's big on him. So we'll see what happens. I do think Dante Moore gets to start. We'll see, what happens throughout the course of the season. But regardless, I mean, the quarterback room is in good hands. They got the 5-star receiver coming in, DeCorian Moore. He's supposed to be like the best receiver of this recruiting class. So hopefully we get to watch him in action and, he contributes right away. He'll be right next to Evan Stewart, who's coming back, another big impact player for the receiver room. And then they got Mekhi Hughes, the running back from Tulane, coming in, who's had a lot of success with them last year. The offense is vamped up, ready to go. I know they lost Josh Conerly to our Commanders, but I think that they'll be fine in the trenches still. They added Bear Alexander, the D tackle. I believe he's from Cal. They added him to a D-line that's already strong. Oregon, and Dan Lanning, like you were saying, once you get into the top 10, there's so much talk about coaches, and he's just done such a good job of just, making that program just, relevant and tough and a quality program year after year. So fun to watch. I mean, they compete with the best of them, with the SEC schools, with the best of the Big Ten. I mean, they compete. That number 3 spot, we got your squad, Penn State. Almost every star on offense is back. They added Trevor Pena, the standout from Syracuse, to the wide receiver room, and Devontae Ross from Troy, and Tyron Hudson from USC, all to the receiver room. You combine that with the return of both running backs, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They have both of their starting defensive ends returning. They added depth to that position as well. Their secondary got stronger. They brought in, maybe not stronger, but they did fill in the loss of Jalen Reed with King Mack, the safety out of Alabama. So that's good. We're looking for our hometown hero, Tony Rojas, to maybe, have a big year. We'll see if he can maybe fill the shoes of Abdul Carter and all that. But yeah, and they also added a new defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, who was on that Ohio State staff last year. I believe he might be like the highest paid quarterback in the FBS. So that's huge. But the school made all the right moves. They got all their guys coming back. There's no excuse not to have a huge year. James Franklin has everything he needs. Maybe the development of Drew Aller is what they need, to really get them over the hump. He's a great quarterback, though. Maybe instead of waiting on him to develop into the, what you want, you can maybe cater to him a little bit. I don't think they have an excuse to not go far this year. They should make the playoffs this year. I mean, they should be a favorite for a lot of people to win it all. And then the last 2, We got Ohio State at number 2. Yeah, I mean, they have the 2 best players in the country on both sides of the ball. Jeremiah Smith on the offensive side, Caleb Downs on the defensive side. I believe Caleb Downs was like a unanimous All-American last year. I don't know if Jeremiah Smith was. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. But yeah, they do have a decision to make at QB, though. It seems like it's between the 5-star true freshman that they got, Taven St. Clair, or the redshirt freshman, Julian Sayin. So we'll see who they end up going with, but they do have to make a decision there. I mean, they're riding the high off of winning a national championship, so they should be ranked in the top 3. Yeah, they always have money to throw to. They're another team that apparently, according to Kurt, them in Texas has a $40 million roster, and that brings me to number 1, Texas. Hook 'em horns. The running back room is returning. DJ Baxter could be the best running back out of the SEC, according to a lot of people. And they have Wisner coming back, too, who's a great pass-catching back. The wide receivers are more than capable still. Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore both are capable receivers. And Arch Manning, we finally get to see it. It was a 2-year wait. We get to see a full season of him starting. He did have some flashes last year, those games that he did play. And then even when they used him in those packages, like I was talking about in our SEC episode, I mean, the legs he has, he's an athletic guy. I'm really excited to see how he does perform. I'm really excited to see what Sark draws up for him in that offense. But yeah, I do think Texas, overall, they got it all. They really do have it all. It seems like they do every year. And they have like the name behind them too with Arch Manning. I mean, the most hyped college football player since I don't know when, Heisman candidate. Seems like has the best odds to win it as of right now. So yeah, that's what I got. Let me know what you think. Let's hear yours.
Yeah, you'll see how much more I'm riding Clemson than you are. Number 5, Penn State Nittany Lions. This conversation happens every year. It has happened every year since Saquon came back for his second magical year, that 2017 year when he came back after he had a phenomenal 2016 year. And since then, almost every year we've had this conversation. There has been plenty of talent on that team, and there has just been less than stellar outputs by that team. I'm not going to point fingers. That's not what I'm here for. Today, I'm here to tell you why I put Penn State at 5 and not at 1, 2, 3, or 4. Everyone has come back. As you said, Brandon, Deni Dennis Sutton actually will be a force to be reckoned with on that defense, just like he was last season. There is studs on both sides. You mentioned both the running backs coming back. Basically, the entire offense is coming back. They're following the recipe. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But what I fear is that what people label as winning the big game is not winning the big game. It's making the correct decisions at the right points in the game. I have seen one too many times where James Franklin has made very poor decisions, whether it's on player personnel or whether it's on play calling. The most recent example that everyone can think of, obviously, is the 4 downs that they had inside the 5 against Ohio State at home that they were unable to tie up the game with. That being said, I could name numerous times that he has made horrible decisions, even most recently against SMU at home, a game that we blew them out, but we went for it on our own 20 on a 4th and 2 and didn't get it when we're up by 2 touchdowns. So stuff like that won't make the paper. That won't make the headlines. Can he win the big game? It's not can he win the big game. It's can James Franklin make the right decisions? And I don't believe that he will. I have him at 5 for that reason. Number 4, Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman, he's kind of created this culture at Notre Dame now. I don't even know how, but he kind of spun that loss to NIU, and he's kind of like ridden that high, talking about everyone hates us. And it's what good coaches do. I have a lot of respect for Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame program. Obviously, they beat Penn State, and coming from me, that should mean a lot. I have a lot of respect for that program. Jeremiah Love is my personal Heisman favorite. I saw how he performed in that game against Penn State with basically a broken leg. And also Jadarian Price is coming back. So it looks like there's a lot of duo running back groups that are coming back for the same intent. They're here to win a national championship. Between those 2 running backs, they had almost 1,900 rushing yards, which is insane. Marcus Freeman, like I said, phenomenal coach. He also picked up Chris Ash, who's this like defensive guru, played for a bunch of coached for a bunch of NFL teams. They just need to figure out their QB room. They do that, they'll bring success to the program. At 3, I have Ohio State. Literally nothing to add. You covered everything. Here's what I worry about with Ohio State. They committed so hard to last year. It's hard for me to look at that team and with the losses they had, 14 draft picks. 14
Insane.
draft picks.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of money there, and Ryan Day is an excellent head coach. Excellent head coach. And he just won a national championship. Everyone's going to say that. You still have two very important pieces. Like you said, you have two of the best players in the country. The question is can you leverage that to build the rest of the roster around those two players to ensure success?
Yeah.
So we'll see how they play out. At 2, I have Clemson. I really thought about this. Clemson is tough. Dabo Swinney, I love the guy. I think he's a great head coach. Last year, a lot of people were hating on him, including myself, because of the portal and how staunchly against it he was. Like I mentioned, the issue with Clemson is not necessarily the portal anymore. They made it to the playoffs. They won the ACC championship. They look good. Cade Klubnik is a dog. Honestly, this team is poised. This team is seriously poised. They have talent. Obviously, they lost Maffa. But otherwise, their offense looks great. Their defense is still packed with studs. What are they going to do with this roster? I'm very curious. The ACC is never a powerhouse conference. There's been some coaching changes. There's been some roster changes, but I do not think Clemson is going to have too much trouble in this conference. For that, I got them at 2. At the number 1 spot, I have Texas. Everyone does. I mean, I'm excited. I think, there's not much to be said. Steve Sarkisian, it is really tough to give him the number 1. I'm going to be honest with you. He's got too much emotion. Excellent play caller, but he's too emotional. And it's unfortunate, but if he can just tidy up his act a little bit on the sideline and really focus on game decision-making, elite game decision-making, maybe they'll win a national championship this year. It's going to be tough if Arch Manning performs the way that everyone is expecting him to, which is going to be difficult. If he has anything less than a stellar season, and I'm not talking average, above average, like very above average. I'm talking stellar. If he has anything less than a stellar season, I mean, he's a Heisman favorite. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You've seen a couple of games and a couple of runs. Win the SEC championship. You couldn't even do it with Quinn Ewers, who had 8 years of experience. Honestly, I like both of our lists a lot, and there was only 2 or 3 teams that we differed vastly on. But I really like your list. I want to dive a little bit more into the teams that didn't make it, and I think we'll get to those once we dive into breaking down the SEC, the ACC over-unders, and the Big 12 over-unders. I'm super excited to talk about the state of Colorado. Brandon, what else do you want to tell our fans?
Yeah, just more content on the way. Please comment, what you want to see out of us. Like you were saying, Big 12 and the ACC win totals, those episodes will be on the way soon. One thing, you know what? I'm just going to ask you right now. You know what we should do, Alex? We should do an episode, focused on the coaches, but what I think would really be cool is if we did an episode focused on their coaching trees. Okay. So if we could do an episode focused on Saban's coaching tree, a bunch of the people that came from him, because I mean that one is just absurd. But of course, he's the godfather, and then we can go from there. Because I feel like a lot of these, there's just so much movement in college football, and there's just so many teams, so many coaches that I think that would be really, really fun. I always get curious about that. So let us know if you guys also would be interested
lineage. In that. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Because, I noticed that even Josh Pate in a lot of his interviews, he'll ask coaches hey, when you take a step back, how do you recognize when one of your coordinators is going to be a future head coach? And a lot of them had different ways to reply to that. And I'd love to go into coaching lineages. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Figure out where these guys come from. Okay, please also subscribe to the channel if you have not. It's free, it's fast, it's fun. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with y'all this evening. New episodes every Sunday for now. As we get closer to the season, we're hoping to up that to 2 times a week so we can get you guys gambling properly. And have a wonderful evening. Peace out.
Take care, y'all.